Did you fail because you got the market wrong, but you built a great product? That's actually not such a bad thing. That happens, right? Happens to the best of us. I mean, I failed more times than, are you comfortable with that failure? So the people that can own it, in my opinion, that's a very special class of person. And part of it is just being around enough people. That's why Silicon Valley is so great, because it celebrates failure as much as it celebrates success. The founder has to be technical.
Right.
Or the founder has to be between this age and that age. Or the founder is generally of this gender. Or the founder has to have gone to these schools. Or the founder, and so you develop all of these rules mostly based on the historic look back of what's worked before.
Right.
And what I think that basically eliminates is this idea that most people have the ability to be brilliant at something. And for me, what I'm really trying to figure out is whether they have the right characteristics that allow them to be malleable enough to seize an opportunity. Because, in the world of startups, in my opinion, there's as much, if not more, luck than there is skill. Timing, the right technology decisions at the right time, a few critical hires at the right time, a few critical features at the right time. And frankly, you can have a substandard group of people get those things right and beat what is on paper a tremendously better group of people, right, who didn't make those decisions.
Right.
So what you're really trying to figure out, in my opinion, is how does their mind work? Are they scrappy enough? Are they listening? Are they cynical enough to push back? And those characteristics are hard to define. And I think they're manifested in wildly varying ways. What I'm trying to figure out is whether those things exist. And can I plant enough seeds where the intellectual curiosity of the person will guide the decision, as opposed to some great rhetoric that I may spew and then they just blindly run into a brick wall because that's what they think I told them to do. That's not important. Revolution starts in evolution. So you could have the biggest, craziest, audacious idea in the world, but unless you can put one foot in front of the other and make that first step, you're screwed and none of it matters. And again, all it does is it may allow you to, wrap yourself in some really elegant rhetoric. Maybe it allows you to, be really followed on Twitter and appear at tech conference. None of that matters. All of that crap washes out in the end. Because if you suck, you suck.
Right.
And you may be articulate, but if you suck, it don't matter. And you'll be revealed to be a sham. What matters there is, again, it's just that ability to understand what that first specific set of things need to be, with that broader, bigger goal in mind. But if you can't put your first foot in front of the other, and what's amazing? Most people can't, because they get wrapped up in the rhetoric of the vision and the mission and all of this, grandiose, blobbity-blying,
Right.
that they screw up and they're their own worst enemies. I like revolution, I like disruption,
Right.
but I'm skeptical that things start that way. I think let's just say ultimately 5 years from now, we look back and we think that there was a massive sea change politically in the Arab world because of the Arab Spring. That fruit vendor self-immolated because he was frustrated. Now, maybe he started a revolution, but that took courage to do what he
Right.
did. That's not right nor wrong, in my opinion. But my point is, that's an example of how a revolution started with, a small, or not a small thing, I mean, it was a big thing, but one thing that was tractable within him. And I think these broad-based kind of gnarly expressions of how all of these huge, crazy things can happen, they happen over many, 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 many years. These are massive tectonic plates. It all boils down to one person doing one thing. And I think that for a lot of people, that's hard still. I think it's probably atypical. That's sort of why we've constructed the space that we've constructed, which is to have a lot of these really interesting companies here very early on. And what it allows me to do is sort of transfer knowledge. I mean, look, right now, I've come out of sort of 12 years of operating some of the most interesting consumer businesses that have been built on the internet. And I've been a part of now 3 massively seminal, interesting products. Winamp, Facebook. And so there's a body of knowledge there that's really relevant. But it's only relevant for a short period of time. 4 years from now, I'll be as dumb as any other VC. But in these next 3 or 4 years, I probably have some reasonable knowledge to transfer. And so the best thing that I can do is make sure I'm in a position to get that into as many people as possible. Because then at that point, what I'm hoping is then I'll be able to learn from them.
Right.
Because they'll really understand the rules of how the next 10 years will evolve. And then I'll be able to learn from them, and they'll feel, a sense of, not necessarily obligation, but like, that maybe hopefully a little bit of, gratitude combined with a little bit of, pity. And then they'll want to sort of, teach me.
Right.
So, I mean, this is unfortunately the standard corporal response that every VC gives you, and I don't really have a better one. But the way that this culture works, in many ways sort of similar to how American Idol works, for better or for worse, which is there's all of these intermediate levels of selection and filtering that happens. So, for example, somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody that knows me, or any other VC. And typically what happens, it goes through this chain, and people ask this question, hey, does it pass my sniff test? And if it does, they pass it to the next guy, because they want the next guy to not look at him and say, why did you send me this thing?
Right.
So it's like, if your idea is for like, chocolate covered dog biscuits, you're not probably going to go and try to pitch that to Klein or Sequoia. And so somewhere along the chain, someone's going to say, you know what, there's a more appropriate avenue of capital for chocolate covered dog biscuits. Now, if those chocolate covered dog biscuits had some sort of like, biosensor built into it so that you can now map the intestinal tract of the dog and like, prevent parvo and 9 other diseases, maybe, right? And so there's all of this filtering that happens. And so by the time that it gets to these guys, it's at a point where they can make relatively straightforward decisions. And so that's typically how it happens is, somebody who knows somebody who knows a VC, and it kind of goes through that cycle. That being said, there are still many, many people who, in my opinion, should have access to capital to pursue their ideas and don't. And that's why I think there's some amazing things that are happening right now, again, in this sort of financial services ecosystem that is, in my opinion, transformational for capitalism, and capitalism by individual, entrepreneurs. So specifically, a company that I think is doing amazing things, AngelList, right? So, you could be in, some small little town somewhere, and it could be you and 3 people who just have a really great technical idea. And if you can sort of explain that well, and if you can start to sort of, put out a beta version of a product and, be out there in the ecosystem and have credibility, you could raise money there. So to me, that's amazing. So if I was an entrepreneur that didn't know anybody, I would first try to go this path of AngelList and try to build some technical credibility and product traction, and use that as a conduit to sort of get introduced to people via that chain. It depends. It depends on how they failed. I would say, I still believe everything I wrote in that departing note that I sent to the people at Facebook. I did I had a functional role, but part of my job at the end was probably to be this kind of curmudgeonly old timer who made sure that we never kind of veered off of our Northern Star. Look, when companies work, the biggest thing that happens is you revert to the mean. And what I mean by that is the mean is every crappy company out there. And we all work at crappy companies. We've all done it. We all look at our boss and think, this guy's an idiot. How does he have this job? This company's so stupid. I hate my job.
Right.
Is it time to leave yet? We've all been in that position. And so the real question that I was asking myself at Facebook was, what happens and how do companies end up in this situation? And my realization is every company gets there eventually.